Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Wanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. As usual, you're joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raizakweyo.
I'm so excited because it's quarter to Friday and it's also chocolate cake day. However you like your chocolate cake, a chocolate cake day gives you an excuse to indulge as deeply as you would like. And tomorrow is my birthday. I can
yes. Now we know what to get. Now we have to get chocolate,
chocolate
cake.
It's all
good.
And here is more on Chocolate Cake Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories, Cyclone Anna, at least 36 people died in Madagascar and Mozambique. Tropical Storm Anna has killed 34 people in Madagascar and 2 in Mozambique and left most of Malawi without power in recent days, according to reports released by authorities in the 3 countries. The storm, which is formed in the east of the large island of Madagascar, triggered heavy rains that caused flooding and landslide in the capital of Antananarivo. According to the report by the Disaster Management Agency on Tuesday, 34 people have died and nearly 65,000 people have been left homeless since the end of last week. After crossing to the Indian Ocean, Anna's heavy rains hit northern and central Mozambique. 2 people were killed and 49 injured in the Zambezia province, according to the Mozambican National Risk Management Institute.
All right, in our second story, fears grow for 850 children trapped inside prison seized by Islamic State. Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces and U.S. troops attempted to storm the Gweiran prison in the city of Hasakeh after it was seized by militants last Thursday. Around 850 children are thought to have been caught up in the clashes, which have lasted 6 days, UNICEF said. Every day counts. It's very hard to even imagine what atrocities these children are witnessing, UNICEF's Middle East and North Africa Regional Advocacy and Communications Head Juliette Toma said. The fighting has also forced over 45,000 civilians, mostly women and children, to flee from their homes. The UN's Children's Agency said fighting must end immediately so the children, some of which are as young as 12, can leave safely.
9 Senegalese soldiers missing in Gambia. 9 Senegalese soldiers from West African Mission in Gambia have been missing since Monday and were believed to be held captive in Casamance rebels following clashes during an operation against timber trafficking. The 9 soldiers would probably be held hostage by the MFDC, the armed rebellion that is fighting for independence in Casamance, a region in southern Senegal bordering Gambia. The army said in a statement, operations are continuing to find them and secure the area, it said. The Senegalese army announced on Monday that the death of 2 of its soldiers in the clashes on the same day with suspected rebel in western Gambia, a country partly landlocked by Senegal and home to rebels of the Movement of Democratic Forces of Casamance. The clashes of the suspected rebels occurred as part of an action to secure the fight against illegal trafficking, particularly against the criminal exploitation of timber on the border with Gambia, it said on Tuesday.
In our next story, families consider lawsuits against SACAA over non-compliance and crash cover-up. Families of 3 SA Civil Aviation Authority employees killed in a plane crash 2 years ago are considering suing the organization after an accident investigation report released on Tuesday. The report blames human error, but also found the aircraft was not maintained properly and did not have a valid certificate of airworthiness and should therefore not have been flying. Captain Tabiso Tolo, First Officer Teboho Lekala Kalal, and Flight Inspector Gugu Comfort Nguni were killed. The Ethiopians found the crew had lost control of the aircraft. However, Lekala Kala's father, August Lekala Kala, said the report confirmed their concerns. We disagreed it was due to a pilot error. SACAA cannot be a referee and a player at the same time.
In our next story, more than 50 million people affected by urban conflicts across the globe, says the UN. The United Nations chief said on Tuesday that more than 50 million people are affected by urban conflicts across the globe. Opening a Security Council debate on how to protect civilians caught up in an urban conflict, Antonio Guterres said that more than 50 million people are currently impacted by fighting inside towns and cities. He explained that urban warfare puts civilians at risk and sieges the blockades, paving the way for starvation. It also forces a million of people onto the long road of exile. In urban areas from Afghanistan to Libya, Syria, or Central African Republic, city dwellers face a greater risk of being killed or injured, the use of explosive weapons in crowded areas, and the grave psychological trauma it leaves on just 2 instances. As an example, last year's fighting in Gaza between Israel and Hamas militant was highlighted, which caused dozens of schools and healthcare facilities to get damaged, and nearly 800,000 people were left without piped water. In Afghanistan, an explosive attack outside a high school in the capital, Kabul, last May killed 90 students, mainly girls, and injured an additional 240 people, he said.
Now, according to Al Jazeera, U.S. approves $2.5 billion arms sale to Egypt despite rights concerns. United States President Joe Biden's administration has approved a massive arms sale to Egypt valued at about $2.5 billion despite continued calls for Washington to curtail its support until Cairo improves its human rights record. The possible sale, which is not finalized, includes 12 Super Hercules C-130 transport aircraft and related equipment worth $2.2 billion and air defense radar systems worth an estimated $355 million. The U.S. Department of State said the Defense Security Corporation Agency notified Congress of the possible sale just hours after congressional Democrats urged the administration not to release a much smaller package of military assistance withheld last year pending the Egyptian government meeting certain rights-related conditions. Now, the Biden administration has promised to pursue a human rights-led foreign policy, including taking a hard line with el-Sisi. However, it has avoided a larger overhaul of U.S. military aid and sales to Egypt, which it considers a key ally in the region.
Malawi drops 5 steps on World Corruption Index. In 2021, Corruption Perception Report by Transparency International shows that there is an improvement on Malawi's scores, as the country has scored 35 out of 100 points and is ranked 110 out of 100 80 countries and territories that have been assessed. The 2021 Corruption Perception Index shows that Malawi has scored 35%, dropping 5% point when compared to 2020 findings, where Malawi scored 31. This, according to the TI statement, means cases of corruption have been declining in years between 2012 and 2020. The report indicated that this is because of changing perception of the government's resolve to fight corruption. However, Human Rights Defenders Coalition and the Center for Social Accountability and Transparency have said there is more work to be done for the country to dispel conception that it has corrupt elements. The HRDC chairperson Gift Taparent said, despite there being signs of progress, the country was far from winning the battle against corruption.
UNICEF launches campaign to boost COVID-19 vaccinations in Africa. The United Nations Children's Fund on Wednesday kicked off an 8-week campaign to help boost COVID-19 vaccinations in Africa. UNICEF said the first ever U-Report challenge, which comes a week after COVAX delivered its billionth dose in Rwanda, calls on all 13.3 million U-reporters in Africa to help get vaccines to the unvaccinated. Through improving access and confidence in COVID-19 vaccines, the hashtag Give It a Shot challenge aims to activate young people in motivating those eligible in their community to get vaccinated, it said in a statement issued in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. U-Report is a messaging tool that empowers young people around the world to engage with and speak out on issues that matter to them. UNICEF said the campaign, dubbed U-Report hashtag Give It a Shot challenge, which will initially focus on 6 countries on the continent, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, will be rolled out for 8 weeks.
Terrorism prevents a fifth of schools in Cabo Delgado from opening. Armed violence in Cabo Delgado will prevent a fifth of schools there opening next Monday at the start of the new school year, the Provincial Directorate of Education has announced. We have some schools in areas affected by terrorism that we will not be able to open. There are a total of 183 schools, said spokesman Manuel Bakar in an assessment in Pemba on Monday. The fight of the population to places of safety meant that it was not possible to say exactly how many students would be affected. He added, the public schools in question teach from grade 1 to 12. There are a total of 985 public schools in the northern province. Destruction of infrastructure and lack of security and the consequent fight for the population means that education is one of the worst affected sectors in the region. Now, Manuel Baga gave assurance that students who had left conflict zones would be reintegrated into teaching establishments in safe areas which have shown signs of overcrowding. The Education Department spokesperson says the violence that has been going on for more than 4 years has left Cabo Delgado with the highest illiteracy rate among the country's provinces at more than 50% of the population.
Now, in the last of our top stories, Aliko Dangote and Africa's other billionaires grew wealthier in 2021. As a group, Africa's 18 wealthiest individuals saw their combined income increase by 15% in 2021 compared to the previous year. According to Forbes magazine, which produces the annual ranking of Africa's wealthiest, soaring stock prices helped push the total wealth of Africa's billionaires club to nearly 85 billion US dollars. Nigeria's Aliko Dangote led the way for the 11th consecutive year with a worth of 13.9 billion US dollars. South African luxury goods magnate Johan Rupert climbed up 2 spots from the 2021 survey into second place in 2022. Fellow South African Nikki Oppenheimer, who formerly ran diamond mining firm De Beers before selling it to a mining firm Anglo-American a decade ago, ranks third, worth an estimated 8.7 billion. Forbes says its methodology for determining the rankings is based on the wealth of African billionaires who reside in Africa or have their primary business there. Zimbabwean Strive Masiyiwa, a citizen of Zimbabwe and a London resident, appears on the list due to his telecom holdings in Africa. Masiyiwa's fortune is listed at $2.7 billion US. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories here on Africa Good Morning. After the break, we're going to be talking about pangolins. Stick around.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, World Pangolin Day is coming up in a few weeks. In the next clip, NMH's Yana Marie Smith chats to Kesley Prediger, the founder of the Pangolin Conservation and Research Foundation, about this special little animal. Let's have a look.
Good morning, Kelsey, and thank you so much for joining us today on the show. We are here to talk about pangolins. World Pangolin Day is coming up in February. Can you tell me a little bit about why this day is significant?
World Pangolin Day is the third Saturday of February every year. This year it falls on the 19th of February. And it's really an important day because it's a great opportunity to draw awareness to pangolins. They are the most trafficked mammal worldwide. And within Namibia, in the past few years, there are more cases registered for pangolin-related crimes than elephant and rhino combined. And so it's a great time to use this day to raise awareness and demand reduction of the trade. So there are 8 species worldwide, 4 that occur in Asia and 4 that occur in Africa. Here in Namibia, we have just 1 species, which is the Temminck's pangolin. And worldwide, they have been threatened because they are used in traditional Chinese medicine, as well as eaten as a delicacy in numerous Asian countries. So the Asian species are all critically endangered or endangered and threatened with extinction. The species in Africa have always faced traditional use, such as spiritual beliefs, consumption, medicines, different things like that, but there's never been such a high pressure. The number 1 threat to pangolin right now are people, but they're also threatened with electric fencing. A lot of people don't realize that electric fencing is a major threat to pangolin, as well as many other small mammals. Low-lying electric wires, the pangolin actually will walk into with the soft underside of their body and curl around it and get electrocuted. We don't have any figures in Namibia, but there was a study done in South Africa that found for about every 12 kilometers of fencing, 1 pangolin is electrocuted, which is quite a high number. So if that fencing wasn't there before, very likely pangolins are going to die from that. As far as other land use goes, we don't have a lot of data on the effects on pangolins, but they can die in fires. Habitat fragmentation is a problem because as fences go up, they're not able to disperse, which creates more competition on an island-bound ecosystem. But another major threat that we've seen is climate change and drought. In the 2018-2019 drought, there was a population in central Namibia that I was studying, and 50% of individuals died of starvation and secondary illnesses that came about due to poor health. So that's another major threat pangolins are faced with.
You are also the founder of the Pangolin Conservation and Research Foundation.
I founded the organization to help cover the gap in areas where the needs for pangolin conservation weren't quite being met. And so our aim is to support pangolin conservation through research, collaboration, awareness and education, as well as community engagement and local empowerment. We do focus our research on numerous subjects, and this is conservation-based research. So the goal of the research we do is to help inform policy, guidelines, anything that can help conserve pangolins as a species.
That brings us to the Namibian Pangolin Working Group.
Yeah, so the Namibian Pangolin Working Group was founded in 2020, and Kenneth Wieseb of the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism is the chair, and I am the secretariat. And some of the main goals of this group are to streamline processes surrounding pangolin conservation. So in this time, we have drafted the first national conservation management plan for pangolins. We've done capacity building with first responders, including police and nature conservation officers. With that, we have also done outreach into the different regions to veterinary clinics to provide first response care for live confiscated pangolins. And we now have 10 registered veterinary clinics across 6 different regions. And we've also done this nice educational poster behind me, as well as another poster for awareness. And then in addition to that, we've created some guidelines for the handling of pangolins once they're confiscated live. And we're working on numerous other sets of guidelines, including post-release monitoring, veterinary care, things kind of along those lines.
But how can we help you?
First and foremost, raising awareness is so important. There's still quite a few people that don't even know what a pangolin is. So raising awareness is a huge first step in the right direction. And then from there, it's important that if anyone hears of, sees anything suspicious, it is illegal to even handle a pangolin, have a scale or anything like that on your person. So there is a hotline. It's 55555. And people can SMS that number anonymously with any kind of tip-off. In addition to that, what's very important is to demand reduction, demand, a change in people's behavior. It still happens in local areas that people are eating pangolins, having them for their own use. And I think as communities, it's important to demand that this behavior stop.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. As you know, Africa Good Morning prides itself on being your regular source for decentralized African news, and that's why we're going to take a trip to the House of Stone, Zimbabwe, or as you might know it, Zimbabwe, and have a chat with Talent Gore. Talent, wamkase.
Mamukase Ashwin, Mamukase Aina. Good morning, Africa.
Let's get straight into our first story. Poor drainage system causes floods in Harare. Obviously, this is not a good development. Tell us about it.
So, poor and blocked drainage system is causing artificial floods and pools in the streets of Harare, exposing residents to waterborne diseases and road accidents. we find that flooding due to poor drainage system has become the order of the day in most Harare.
Talent, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please continue.
So the rainy season started late, and since the beginning of the year, there has been persistent rains in many areas. Harare residents under the umbrella Combined Harare Residents Association actually gave an ultimatum to the Harare City Council to make sure that they maintain and refurbish the drainage system. But it seems as if it's falling on deaf ears, as the Harare City Council is not doing anything to make sure they refurbish the drainage system, the poor drainage system in Harare. And we'll find that some areas, actually in the residential areas, some people are actually counting their losses after their homes were swept away by floods and they lost most of their property due to these floods. And apparently the council is not doing anything to address this issue.
All right, we understand that the National AIDS Council has started warning against untested herbs as a cure for HIV and AIDS. Please tell us more.
National AIDS Council of Zimbabwe has warned against the use of unapproved medicines and herbs that are being sold on the streets as cures for HIV and AIDS. Apparently, there are people who are masquerading in the streets of Harare and Zimbabwe, selling herbs and traditional medicines, telling people to stop using ARVs or to use ARVs and these medicines simultaneously, telling them that these herbs, they'll fight the HIV and AIDS. Some are actually telling them that it actually cures HIV and AIDS. So the National AIDS Council has said that people should not listen to those people, as they are only looking for money, and they should not stop using their antiretrovirals. This has been going on for quite some time in the streets of Harare. You find that those people, they'll be selling herbs, they'll be saying that they cure HIV and AIDS, they cure cancer, they cure all those chronic diseases. So the National AIDS Council warned people not to use these herbs and not to stop using their medicines.
Well, I'm as naturalist as naturalists come, but that is certainly irresponsible. We have to trust science. Now, in your next story, Zimbabwe government has launched a law enforcement operation targeting public service vehicles without litter bins. Those found breaching are facing fines of up to $1,000. Tell us about that.
So apparently all vehicles are required by law to have litter receptacles in terms of 60 of 2007. So apparently the government has launched a law enforcement operation which will be targeting public service vehicles without litter bins. They're saying that if you're found without a litter bin in your vehicle, you have to pay a fine of $1,000. So they've launched this blitz with the Environmental Management Agency and the police. The Environmental Management Authority is saying that most of the highways in the country, they will be littered left, right, and center. So by launching this operation, they will try to maintain the roads and make sure that people are not littering in the highways and even in the streets of Harare and other areas in the country.
All right, Talent, from MDC to CCC. Please tell us why Nelson Chamisa decided to change the name of his party.
So apparently there have been fights regarding the name MDC Alliance between Nelson Chamisa and Douglas Monzora. So this week on Monday, opposition leader Nelson Chamisa has formed a new political party called Citizens Coalition for Change, a move which is said would define a new course in Zimbabwe's. Addressing a press conference, Chamisa said that they had dropped everything that relates to MDC Alliance as they have lost everything to state-coordinated fights. These fights actually went to the courts and Chamisa lost this battle in the courts. So there was pressure for him to change the name from MDC Alliance to to another name. So apparently, he has actually launched a new party, and they've dropped everything that has anything to do with MDC, and their color. The party will be identifying itself with the color yellow. So we now have a new policy in the country, which will be led by Nelson Chamisa. And actually, yesterday it was nomination court day, whereby they'll be nominating the people that will be running for the by-elections, and they actually feel that they are people for the open vacant positions in parliament. So they'll be going for the the by-elections on the 26th of March. So yeah, that is all on Chamisa and his new party.
All right, CCC has a ring to it. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news stories from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa Good Morning. Now, in Botswana, there has been a landmark cannabis case. We'll be talking about that after the weather.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in Botswana, the High Court has granted single firms permission to produce cannabis in a landmark case. Wow.
Interesting.
Interesting. Masego Mokwasa has this story and more. Good morning, Masego. Please let us know about all your stories. Masego? Masego, are you there?
Africa, good morning. Good morning to you in studio as well.
Lovely to have you, Masego.
Can you hear me?
Take your stories. Yes, we can hear you.
Great. The High Court in Botswana has upheld Fresh Standard Pty Limited's exclusive rights to produce hemp and cannabis for industrial and medical purposes in the country. This is contained by a ruling by Gaborone High Court Judge Chris Gabanagaye in the case in which the company owned by farmer Baron De Beer sued the government. In October 2018, through the Ministry of Agriculture, De Beer was granted an exemption in license to grow hemp and cannabis for industrial and medicinal purposes. However, months later, in 2019, the Botswana Police's narcotics unit raided his farm and uprooted young plants in his nursery. The farmer was later told that his license had been withdrawn by the Permanent Secretary for Agricultural Ministry. He then approached the court, arguing that he had a valid permit for the business, and also argued that he would stand to lose over 750,000 pula to supply hemp oil and medicinal byproducts. In awarding Fresh Standard permission to continue its business in its first of its kind court case in Botswana, Justice Gabanagaye noted that the permanent secretary had acted outside of the jurisdiction. This is exciting news for Botswana. As you may know, some countries around Africa have allowed citizens to participate in the production of cannabis for medicinal use. So it's a big deal for Botswana, and we're hoping to catch up soon. Following, Masisi reshuffles cabinet. President Mokgweetsi Masisi has reshuffled his cabinet once again. The changes come after the resignation of Mpho Balopi from Labour Ministry in December last year. The most notable change is the dropping of Dr. Thapelo Matheka from cabinet, replaced by Eric Molale at the Ministry of Infrastructure. Matheka is now in the backbench amid a speculation of a fallout with President Masisi. Machana Shamukune has been appointed as the new Labour Minister, taking over from Balopi, who resigned from his ministerial position. Khotla Outletse has been promoted from assistant and is now the Minister of Local Government. Beauty Manake has been moved from agriculture to trade and industry, and this has left Botswana wondering what the cause of the reshuffle may be, as it is the third since the last elections and has come with no public explanations. Last but not least, the emergency parliament meeting that is currently in session on the afternoon of the 25th of January passed a phone tapping bill, by Minister of Defense, Justice and Security Kagiso Musi. Parliament passes phone tapping bill for the second reading as tabled by Minister Kagiso Musi on urgency certificate. The votes were as followed: 25 members of parliament, voted yes. 18 members of parliament voted no, and 11 were absent. Needless to say, opposition has come out against what they say is a breach of privacy for citizens and will be used to intimidate civilians. Many private attorneys are also rumored to be gathering and preparing to formally stand against this law. That brings me to the end of my report today. Thank you for having me in studio.
Thank you very much for bringing us the stories from Botswana, Masego. I know we're not going to be reckless with my phone. I might, WhatsApp has that encryption thing. I'm not trying to have my conversations tapped. But this is still Africa. Good morning. After the break, we're going to be talking about how Malawi will be benefiting from UK investing $3.1 billion in Africa. So let's take a break and we'll be back with your economic news stories. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories. In the first story, Malawi to benefit from UK's 3.1 billion Africa investment. Malawi is set to benefit from a new growth gateway tool aimed at strengthening the United Kingdom and African business relationships following a record £2.3 billion, which is about 2.5 trillion kwacha support from the UK Export Finance. This came out during the UK Africa Investment Conference held recently with a focus on sustainable investment to support the continent's transition to clean growth. British High Commission in Lilongwe indicated that the conference aimed to boost economic cooperation between that country and African nations and enhance its role as the continent's investment partner of choice for greener, climate-friendly projects. New initiatives like the Growth Gateway should help promote greater UK trade and investment opportunities into Malawi.
Namibia government eyes gambling riches. Namibian government has launched a renewed effort to establish a national lottery to generate funds for social welfare programs. This was confirmed by the Minister of Environment, Tourism and Forestry, Poamba Shifeta, who says the government also wants to regulate the lottery and gambling industry, which is estimated to involve more than 20,000 illegal slot machines. To implement this law, called the Lotteries Act of 2017, Shifeta's ministry appointed a 6-member board last year, which will be responsible for issuing lottery licenses and establishing the state lottery trust fund. Shifeta this week told the Namibian that law provides the government to operate as a national lottery to generate a fund for the state. The lottery would be a new revenue stream for the government, he said. According to the law, proceeds from the national lottery would be channeled into various government activities, including funding for educational and sports institutions.
In our next story, Uganda's president seeks to boost trade and rein in borrowing. Uganda wants to curb its borrowing and boost exports in sectors such as meat and dairy as the East African country lifts restrictions triggered by the coronavirus pandemic, President Yoweri Museveni and government officials told Reuters. Uganda's trade push follows several years of reduced Chinese lending to the continent and as programs designed to offer relief to indebted countries as they recover from COVID-19 induced slumps start to expire. Museveni said he wanted to expand the country's meat, leather and dairy trade and add value to other agricultural exports such as coffee, which has long been one of Uganda's main foreign exchange earners.
Recovery disrupted. IMF cuts global economic growth forecast. The global economy is entering 2022 in a weaker position than previously expected, the International Monetary Fund warned on Tuesday as it downgraded its global growth outlook largely due to clouds gathering over the recoveries of the United States and China. The IMF's latest World Economic Outlook calls for the global growth to downshift from 5.9% in 2021 to 4.4% this year. The 2022 forecast is half a percentage point lower than the fund's October outlook and largely reflects forecast markdowns for the world's two largest economies. The fund saw the U.S. economy growing 4.0% this year. That was 1.2 percentage points lower than its October call and reflected the failure to pass President Joe Biden's Build Back Better spending plan and the Federal Reserve unwinding of the pandemic stimulus measures and continuing supply shortages that are driving inflation. The IMF sees China's economy growing 4.8% this year, 0.8 percentage points lower than its October forecast. Inflation has proven to be more persistent than the IMF bargained for back in October, thanks to continuing supply chain disruption and high energy prices.
All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, economic indicators. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. It's time for your sports news stories, and we start off with some AFCON results. Now, both games went to penalties as Egypt got the best of Ivory Coast at 5-4, and Equatorial Guinea and Mali also had a nail-biter, but Equatorial Guinea got 6-5 over Mali. All right, now in our next story, Olympics climate change threatens Winter Olympics and future snow sports, according to research. Climate change is threatening the Winter Olympics and the future of snow sports by making conditions much more dangerous for athletes and participants, experts warned in a report published a week before the 2022 Winter Games in Beijing. The Games, which start on 4 February, will be the first Winter Olympics to use almost 100% artificial snow, deploying more than 100 snow generators and 300 snow cannons working flat out to cover the ski slopes. The Beijing Organizing Committee has issued a sustainability report saying the Games' smart snowmaking system could use 20% less water than traditional methods.
Quarter-final at Olombe Stadium to be moved after fatal crash. The Africa Cup of Nations quarter-final, due to be held at the Olembe Stadium on Sunday, will be moved after a fatal crash outside the ground on Monday. At least 8 people were killed and 38 injured as fans struggled to get access to a match between host country Cameroon and Comoros in Yaoundé. All Nation Cup matches will remember the victims with a minute of silence. The Confederation of African Football and World Governing Body FIFA has sent messages of condolences to affected families. 2 children aged 8 and 14 were among the dead and 7 people were seriously injured in the crash. CAF President Patrice Motsepe visited injured supporters in the hospital and the scene outside the Olembe Stadium on Tuesday and later said he was hurt and sad by the incident.
Truly saddening news. Now, in the last of our sports stories, Simon Harmer back in Proteas squad after lengthy absence. Simon Harmer will return to the Proteas test setup for the outbound tour to New Zealand more than 6 years after the 32-year-old player last turned out for the national team. The last time the off-spinner appeared for the Proteas was against India in November 2015. He was set to be joined by Luto Simpalma, Cricket SA revealed on Wednesday, in a squad of 17 that departs for the 2-match series next month. In a move to minimize COVID-19 risks, both fixtures, which will form part of the new cycle of the ICC World Test Championship, will now take place at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. Harmer returns due to the absence of George Linde, who is not available because he is getting married. All right, that brings us to the end of our sports news updates. After the break, your headlines. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning, as we have been broadcasting live from 7 a.m., bringing you news happening on the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, worry not. Here are some of the headlines. Cyclone Anna, at least 36 dead in Madagascar and Mozambique. Malawi to benefit from UK's 3.1 billion Africa investment. Fears grow for 850 children trapped inside prison seized by Islamic State. 9 Senegalese soldiers missing in Gambia. And in AFCON results, Egypt got the best of Ivory Coast and Mali lost to Equatorial Guinea in penalties. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2cents@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. Our DMs are always open. Please keep those lovely messages coming in. We do encourage you to visit our website. It's called One Up To, and on there you'll find this particular show, which repeats from 8:30 to 9:30, and all of the other fantastic shows that NMH has to offer. On that regard, all the best and have a lovely day.
Swear shakanaka.